What's going on, guys? It's been a while since we've made some content for you, let alone a podcast, but we are back today with something special for all of you guys. Before we get started, though, we wanted to just thank our sponsor, Ender's Games, here in Clovis. They help us with all kinds of things with our content and have been supporting us throughout all of this. So thank you for that. If you guys want to just check the link down below to their shop, they have all kinds of things online, as well as just messaging JT for special orders. And then other than that, let's just get right into our episode for today. So today I just wanted to talk about, as you guys all know, this coming up weekend, we have some regionals. So we just wanted to do a state of the meta address. And without further ado, the first color or the first decks we're going to talk about are some honorable mentions. Tim, do you want to kind of go over those, since one of them is Mechikabura, which you have been playing?
Yeah. So first off, what's up, everyone? I'm back. I know it's been a while.
Hey.
I know Caleb took the reins a little bit. Had a lot of life stuff going on. We're good now. Just getting back into the swing of things. Bunch of craziness. Glad to be back.
That's all that matters. It's all that matters too. So.
Yep. With that being said, I have still been, keeping an eye on everything going on in the game. Gotta stay knowledgeable, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
So yeah, let's get into it a little bit. Mechikabura. Not a lot of people were, I think, giving it much credit at first. I know I wasn't. When we had our initial leader spoilers, I was a lot higher on Kai, and just the presence of blue even being playable pushes that deck out of the format completely.
Talking about Kai, right?
Yeah, as long as blue is even playable in the competitive scene, Kai is never going to have a chance.
You want to explain why that is?
Yes, exactly one card, and that's God Sealing Trunks.
Yeah.
It makes the entire deck just not work at all. So I got off of Kai pretty quick, and started testing Mechikabura a bit. Caleb and everyone else, I'm sure all our listeners and viewers know, I love playing black. It's what I do in every new format. Mainly, I'll toy around with other colors for fun, but I mostly play black. So tried out Mechikabura. It was pretty fun. The very first iteration was focused a lot more on the leader itself. The whole triple attack thing. So I threw in Shenron Figure, Shenron the Wish Granter. I was sick. I'm gonna bait out their negates. I'm gonna ult with leader, give it, +5 crit from Figure, slam a Wish Granter, GG.
Yeah.
And then I realized that the deck is much better if you don't do that. So it's kind of interesting because it's like a hybrid kind of deck. So you can play aggressively with the salsa and the shroom that will come out for 1 energy. And it's cool because it fills up your opponent's warp for your bigger boss monsters. And it starts putting early pressure on with 15Ks. But then I found out, what if we just played tempo? And I threw in 2 of the counterplay Deborahs, and I was like, oh my god, this is nuts. So then I put in a third one, and I was like, okay, well, I literally see 1 copy every game now. Because, spoiler alert, you will draw through your deck at 50 cards. Play 60. Play 60. And then I was like, well, what if I saw 2 of them every game? So I went to 4. And I think that's probably one of the best cards in the deck now, is the counterplay Deborah from set 9.
It's amazing what black has inherently not been able to play counterplays for a while now, ever since Hatchiyak kind of fell off. But now that Mechikabura is this new black mid-range, control-ish deck, they're able to bring back black's one and only, like counterplay that establishes board and is more of a tempo play than like Super Kamehameha or
Yeah,
Rebellion Hammer.
Yeah, Super Kamehameha is definitely for more aggro black decks. They're gonna put themselves down to 4 pretty quick.
Yeah, that card says you are not topoing me or whatever, battle card counter you have.
Yeah. But to get back on track with Mechi, the reason that I would put it in probably higher tier than Rogue, I would say it's inching on, the actual tier decks, is because it easily pushes Dark Broly out.
Yeah.
Because you're just gonna keep warping away their drop area with literally every effect in the deck. The leader, both Dragon Balls, you can either warp a 1-drop off field, or with the promo, you warp a card out of their drop area. The Shroom warps battle cards out of their drop. So does the Salsa on attack. Just like everything in the deck just warps your opponent's drop area, and Dark Broly has to have that in order to function. So immediately it pushes one of the strongest decks out of the format just with its presence, if people are going to be playing it.
Right, and I think that definitely, gives it some sort of merit. But moving a little bit forward, what, like, aside from pushing Dark Broly out, where does it sit? Because I know it's a little bit awkward.
Yeah, it's definitely awkward against like Mecha, King Cold, the decks with a lot of extra cards.
Yeah.
But it also forces those decks to play a little more awkwardly. So like I know in all the testing I did with that, with Brandon on the team, he had to play Mecha a lot differently. Because he couldn't just, play his battle cards off of his extra cards and stuff like he wanted to. Because I would just steal them.
Right.
Kind of the same with King Cold. They don't have a lot of battle cards though.
They
just kind of have to accept that when they play their floodgate or whatever, that it's just going to become mine and attack them.
Right.
I did not test the baby matchup, but I would imagine it's kind of the same as King Cold, maybe a little bit better because a lot of their stuff is battle cards that are 4 or less. It'll just be a battle of attrition.
I think specifically you just have to not let them overdrive you and then you win.
Yeah. That's also what Deborah does. No attacking.
Something to note is their servant cards are just going to stay sideways. Actually,
they will not.
You're gonna negate their skills, so they become actual beaters.
Yep. It does switch them to active mode when I take them, though.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So they'll just be, the Gohan becomes a 15k beater, which is cool. If they ready to rumble me and I steal it, now I've got a 20k every turn. Nice. So I think if the high level players pick it up and start testing it, they'll begin to see what we've been seeing with me testing it. That against everything that is not like a turn 2 kill, I think it's better than a lot of decks.
Yeah, it's interesting because, and I think we should close out pretty soon here on Mechikabura, but it's the criticism I had for it since day one was, what if I don't play 4 or less battle cards that, or basically just 4 or less in general, or battle cards that, like, if I don't rely on that, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that. You'll see with a lot of these decks that a lot of decks are pushing more towards finishers as unisons. And that's something we'll go over as well. But I think that's kind of what's holding Mechikabura back, is its lack of unison interaction, which obviously can be fixed, but I just mean like the inherent engine it has.
Yeah. I agree. It's a little harder to deal with the unisons, but the deck also plays a lot of negates and inherently has a
Yeah.
lot of attackers, so
Yeah.
it's kind
So
of like a ebb and flow. But yeah, let's move on to King Cold.
yeah, so neither of us have mained King Cold since set release, but I think we both have seen it played enough that
Mhm.
we recognize its value in the it's not necessarily rogue, it's just not one of our like top 4 or 5 picks for decks, but it's definitely like the next best thing, right, with Mechikabura and such. And so one of the things that King Cold's value has is um, it's like this weird ultra defensive deck that generates a lot of value with its leader swing because it can be um, a large like 25k double or stuff like that, as
Yeah.
well as on defense it just gets that free 10k.
Yeah, I mean, lost my notes here. Um, I played it like once or twice, and it's a lot of fun. It is a very interesting and different deck. Um, I guess it kind of just depends on like the meta around it, right? Because
Yeah,
like
green is always, go ahead.
if the meta is slow, then it's like
Green is
negate
good.
properties don't really do anything, but then the rest of the deck is pretty good.
Yeah.
Uh, but if the meta's too fast, it's, you know, 4 to 7 main deck floodgates are good, but the rest of the deck is not, because it's like half the deck is extra cards. Maybe not all, maybe not half, but a lot of it is.
Yeah, it has like this weird curve where it doesn't really play any in-game bombs, and it kind of just relies on the opponent whittling down their own life
Hmm.
from whether it be like your leader swing or taking life or whatever, and then eventually going in with like a double or a large leader swing or something, or the unison. But yeah, I kind of agree. There's this gap with the deck between it has a good late game and it has a good early defense, but like, what does it do in the middle, right?
Yeah, not a lot.
It kind of
And
just
it just,
durdles and
yeah, it kind of just depends on, in, you know, that specific matchup, what deck has a better mid game.
yeah. And so I think that's kind of Green's issue right now, just in general, too, is that they don't really have a whole lot of mid game that can withstand multiple different types of counters.
Hmm.
Um, like red, for example, right? We have these new 3-drops in King Vegeta for the fusion cost. They're 3-drops, so they're essentially just, turn 3 plays that well, the Vegeta has deflect, the Brawly has deflect and barrier, and then the Goku is something that they probably, well, I don't play it. I don't think it's very good, but I don't know if your opponent would counterplay that because it's not that great and they make some take damage. But you see like this flexibility, right? Where I could side into that mid game that answers your specific counterplay.
Yeah, and green does not have that.
No, not at all.
I feel like maybe I'm wrong, but like at least with the last like 3-4 sets, everything in green has been extremely archetype locked and like not as powerful as the archetype cards in the other colors.
I can get behind that. Um, it's definitely one of those. I think they're still working on it. Bandai's still working on it. It's the problem is that, and we can kind of move forward after this, but the problem with printing cards in that sort of a sense is that it's very hard to give future support to those archetypes when they're so specific, like King Cold, that you literally would just have to print a field, a new 2-cost field that does something he likes, and it would
Yep.
be blatantly obvious that you're just trying to support King Cold.
Mm-hmm.
There's no like, hey, this supports the deck, and it's not intentionally like locked to the deck cards.
Yeah, so I guess we can move on after this, but I feel like with every other color, that color's identity is easily portrayed across like every archetype they print. So it's
Yes.
easy to like interchange things from, different decks or even like more generic cards. So like red, for example, all about minusing battle cards. In like almost every deck that red has, it has that same theme to it.
Right.
Despite what the characters for the deck are.
Right.
Green, it's supposed to be hand destruction or killing things, right?
Yeah.
King Cold doesn't do that.
Not innately, at least. So we'll see a lot of those things checked into the deck with the few slots that you have left. But overall, I think King Cold is the only green deck you should really watch out for, other than, certain other decks that we're probably not going to mention maybe at the end. But yeah.
All right. Moving on.
Yeah, so we have our next color, which we're just kind of going down each of the, colors one by one. But black is the next one. We already talked about Mechikabura being sort of in the same spot as King Cold, where it's good. It beats other decks in the meta, but it kind of struggles with certain things. And so it's not going to be, in our opinion, the top representation of decks. But the other one, which Tim has played for a zillion and one games, is
Vegex, none other than the GOAT, the OG,
surprise,
triple OG.
surprise.
Yeah, so
I don't think anyone is surprised about that,
probably not.
except your wallet.
Yeah, that kind of hurt. I was actually contemplating very hard on playing Mechikabura at the regional this weekend. Excuse me. And then I was like, well, I might as well just play, one of the two best decks in the format.
Yeah,
so I paid the price, literally.
it's a little easier for someone like me to make the decision of playing a little more fringe tiered deck because I already have my invite. But for someone like you, you kind of have to make the hard choice of, do I want the invite or not? Yeah, you're really fighting for that.
I do want it. I took some devastating L's last regional season before COVID, and then I just like didn't play in any of the online ones.
Yeah, but we'll get you that invite.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a wild ride this weekend. But Vegex.
Yeah, so real quick, I'll just preface kind of what we want to talk about with Vegex, because we could go for hours, honestly, about Vegex specifically.
We did that yesterday.
Yeah, we kind of deep dove into that. Let's just talk about kind of why Vegex specifically is one of, if not the best deck going into this format. And it's sort of, how do I put this? It's separation from the energy, noting what turn it is and the kind of defining what the curve is going to look like. It's separation from that.
All right, so the fact that the deck can now play basically eight copies of Demigra, and half of them only cost one energy, and also do not require you to overwhelm, is kind of disgusting. So like when we were all testing the other night at your place, turn 2 and even turn 3, you can Demigra and Gogeta on the same turn.
Yep.
If you do it on turn 2, the shields are down because you are tapped out, and you have a minimum of 2 battle cards in drop, so not quite sparking. Maybe you have more after because you saved your your leader burst for after overwhelm. Yeah, so the deck now has inherent recurring board removal, specifically to the warp, which opens up a lot of tech options, like the new King Vegeta Xenos, Dark Mask Kings, things like that. That outside of the TP, the ones from the sets let you play them for cheaper based on amount of cards in opponent's warp. That's really important.
Right.
We also have the Kinegate, which is really cool because if you do that turn 3 thing, you're left with 1 energy up. Or no, yeah, 1 energy, because you'll Demigra for 2, Gogeta for 1, and then Awaken most likely. You have 1 up. That's perfect for a Kai, which can save you from 2 attacks.
Exactly.
Then I guess really good.
It has, so it can interact with the game and the opponent outside of a curve, which is really good, but that does present the issue of RNG, and if you just don't mill very good, which we were seeing in some of your games, most of them actually, because that's just how your luck typically is.
Yeah,
but
so
I think
real quick,
let me finish. I think that the defining factor is going to be the players that can shift into either early or late game based on how their deck mills, and the players that can do that with their main 60 or 50 something, because they're definitely not playing 50, will be the ones to get the best results out of the deck.
Really the only way you lose to yourself as far as the milling goes is when you mill your Gogetas and your Gokus. Because the whole point of that engine now is the TP SS4 Goku. When you overwhelm it, you can just grab a Gogeta back.
Right.
You can grab anything between 3 and 7, which is basically just not super combos or power burst targets. The rest of the deck is all.
His name's not Goku. His name's Overwhelm Fu.
He's a hairy boy. But yeah, honestly, like as long as you don't burst over your copies of both of those cards, it's kind of hard to lose. I mean, honestly, I think King Vegeta is one of the harder matchups.
Because of all the removal, honestly.
Yeah, I do think that going with the 30k engine, with the TP Goku and its Vegeta fusing partner, I think it's a better build than only having the 5k targets and opting for a more aggressive strategy. Because I know like Benny and I tested 2-3 days in a row, and he was playing the more aggressive list and I was playing my list, which opted for turn 3 turn 4 kill, and I was not struggling that much. Even a couple games he hit me down pretty low pretty quick, but it was really easy to stabilize because he ran out of gas.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's just it goes to it gives a lot of merit and worth to the Vegex deck in general because of that ability to play both versions, or even other versions that aren't out there that we haven't tested yet. But pretty much you're going to play one of the 2 versions or a hybrid of the 2. But I think that just goes to show how good the deck is, and that I think it's going to be the most represented deck at Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, even without the Gogeta engine, it's still a great deck. It just has to operate a little bit differently. I mean, you're opting for really the only option, which is hyper aggro. So probably 4 Ravagers, 4 to 5 double strike effects. I mean, without the Gogeta engine, there's a lot of space in the deck. I know I laid the deck out at your house the other night, and it was like a third of the deck, if not a little bit more, was your Gogeta and Overwhelm engine.
Yeah, plus the
Gogeta, the Gogeta engine plus Demigraz specifically was like 18 to 20 cards. I was like, that's a third of the deck.
Yeah, well, plus the Vegex cards themselves, because you have to run 4
Yeah.
of each.
Yeah, like 3/4 of the deck is already taken up by the Vegex stuff and your Gogeta engine. Yeah,
but it's pretty darn good.
It is really good when it doesn't also fight you as the pilot. But I mean, that's the price you pay for playing Vegex and spinning the wheel, right?
Right.
High risk, high reward. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to explore with Vegex still, with and without that engine. I think there's a lot of stuff with that engine that is unexplored. I know we talked about some of it yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll dive into that a little on another episode.
Yeah, we will for sure. But so I think that kind of wraps up black.
Yeah,
as a color.
Let's move on to your world.
The best world. Anyway, so we're going on to red. And red's been interesting since the game started. It has kind of always been in this place where it's got disgustingly good cards, but it just doesn't do enough for free.
Yeah.
And typically that has held it back in past sets as being more of a, kind of a fun deck or whatever. Like, yeah, you got good cards, but you got to tap energy to do your stuff, so it's not overpowered.
Mm-hmm.
But we have introduced, we as in Bandai, Bandai has introduced 2 new archetypes that have lots of cards that say free. And those 2 are King Piccolo and King Vegeta. So I'm pretty sure if you're not playing one of those 2 decks, you're basically not playing red unless you're going into multicolor like launch or something.
Mm-hmm.
But out of those 2, I've been playing King Vegeta a lot, as you know. I basically have only been playing it, and it's a very interesting deck. It's pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd use the words pretty good. I think it's a little bit better than that. But yeah, it is highly efficient, and it does what it wants to, like every game, regardless.
Yeah, we were yesterday or 2 days ago when we were playing, and the whole thing with Vegex has always been like, oh, it's so nice you have 8 super combos because you have the Kais and the super combos. And when we were playing, you were like, how's it feel to have 8 super combos? And I was like,
except all of yours draw cards.
Yeah, I don't have the 0-10 combo with the Vegeta, but I have a 0-5, and then it's still tuck 1, draw 2 with switching gears, which
is
if
better.
You're playing King Vegeta, you need to have 4 of that card. That's just a fact if you want to play it at its highest level. But yeah, so you kind of mentioned that, and even though it's integral to the archetype where you tuck one of the invaders and then you get to draw 2 new cards, it also is just inherently good in card games to draw cards and see new cards.
Yep.
So it makes that deck just that card alone makes that deck insanely powerful.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know if you had noticed it before I mentioned that.
I did, but I didn't
put it together.
I didn't value the statement.
Yeah, it's pretty important. Nice. It definitely, and I think that's what kind of like sets it. I might get some heat for saying this, but it puts it like where Vegex lives in that realm of I can do things that the rest of you can't.
Yeah, when my 5-card hand can combo to like a 90k or something, that's good.
I mean, honestly, like the fact that you have 8 draw super combos is insane.
And 4 of them are on any turn.
Yeah.
Turn 1, going
Yes.
first.
You can do that for a total of 0 energy.
Yep.
Which is kind of
Yeah,
insane.
It's
And like, you have built-in removal for like the quote-unquote hate cards for your deck. Crisis Crusher, BMS, stuff like that.
yeah, it just costs me energy, but
It does.
it's okay.
Which I do think is important for anyone who's playing like BMS against King Vegeta. Just play it turn 1 because it's still going to slow them down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean it's literally the difference between me having a switching gears Vegeta and a Vegeta to the next level, which is the 19k crit on board turn 1 going first or going second.
Yeah.
Which could
You
be
don't want to
absolutely
take that.
devastating.
You don't want to take an extra crit. You don't have to because they're already going to do it for free.
Exactly. And so like aside from that whole engine, because that's kind of the basis of the deck, is the switching gears, the 19k crit, and then the playing stuff for free and all that sort of thing. The deck is extremely flexible.
Yeah.
You'll see this a lot with our top meta decks, that they can play or be built in several different ways. And King Vegeta is not the exception to that rule of you can play the Vegeta 5-drop, the Goku 5-drop, the Broly 5-drop. You could play the Gogeta Fusion because all of your Gokus and Vegetas are BR.
Yep.
You can play the Bardock engine, which has been popular lately with a lot of people. You can play several different unisons, which I think in our testing you noticed that it made a gigantic difference on which unison I played.
Yes, it did.
And it's just that, along with all the different negates that Red has at its tool package, because the negates aren't just negates. They're not just floodgates. They're floodgates that also kill the card attacking if it's a battle card.
Yeah, your negates kill things.
It's super prevalent.
Yeah,
super
imposing
prevalent.
presence that is a heck of a card, man. Oh my god,
dude,
it's worse than any floodgate any other deck could play.
It just toys with everything.
Like
it messes up numbers.
And you can do it for 0, right?
I discard a card.
Yeah, it's literally better than Dormant. Because Dormant doesn't negate either attack. Yours technically doesn't negate the attack. But it -10s the one attacking? And then your leader also -10s it? So if you're not swinging with at least a 20k, or a bigger than a 20k, it's just dying.
Yep.
And then, so like, for example, something that's really hot in a lot of decks right now is the Bardock fighting against Fates. If you imposing presence on that, -10, leader -10, if it swings with that dual attack, it's just dead from the -5 from attacking again.
Exactly.
That negate is absurd.
It's super good. And the other thing is that in the King Vegeta deck, if you play an invader on the opponent's turn, you can't play non-red Saiyans. So normally you would play Topo, which is pretty good compared to that King Vegeta card. But now we just slot King Vegeta in instead of Topo.
Yep. I think it's better.
I think it is better in King Vegeta. I think Topo still has a spot in other decks though that need to build board.
No, definitely.
So, because I have the luxury of just critting you down to 4 if the game goes long enough.
Yes, you only actually need to deal 4 real damage.
But other decks that can't do that, they need the Topo for the 20k beater.
It's crazy with that negate. It's not just if you're attacking the leader. It's just if you declare an attack, the cost is -5k.
Yep. Yep.
Like you can't even go to
pretty
clear
good.
board. You can't try to clear unison. You're just gonna pass your turn.
Yeah, and that's never a good thing.
No, like every other
Time walk is
floodgate
not okay.
outside of maybe the poutine, but it's only playable in Mechikabura. No other floodgate like literally just stops your turn, except I guess baby hatch. That's a secret.
Right.
This one literally just ends your turn. You're
Yep.
not going to attack anymore.
Yeah. So
It's dumb. That card is big dumb. But we could probably go on about that one forever too.
Yeah, there's more things that I didn't say yet, but it's fine. We can just leave it as it is. It's good enough. We don't need to get people to hate the card.
Deck
King
is
Vegeta
wild. Keep an eye on it.
Disgusting.
Watch out for it.
I just want to do a little tidbit on Gohanks, the SCR.
Bro.
The
It's
card is
unkillable.
wild.
It's unkillable.
The card is snapped.
Go ahead. Say your piece. I'm just going to say it's unkillable. If it lands, just scoop.
If you don't have another unison to swing with to try and kill me. Which is another theme you guys are going to see a lot of, like we mentioned before. Anyway, so the Gohanks unison, comes down with 4 markers. It's 25k. If you swing a battle card at it, your battle card's dead.
Minus 25.
Also, when I play it, your battle cards are all dead. And yeah, unless your leader is going to swing in super combo, you're not dealing damage because I'm a 25k. Also, I have 4 markers, so you got to do 25k 4 times. And not to mention, there's a few tech cards in red that can add markers to unisons. So even if you put me down to 1 or 2 and are like, well, cool, you're not ulting me, and I can just swing leader and kill you, I have cards that can add markers to my stuff. Hint, hint, Gogeta engine. Hint, hint, a few other cards that I'm not going to mention. And if you happen to kill it, cool, my 4-cost card was a board wipe, a dual attack blocker, and 4 negates, because you had to do 4 damage to it.
There's really only one answer. You gotta fight fire with fire. I think the only thing that cleanly answers it is the Kai secret.
Kai secret. If
on offense.
Yes.
And you cannot swing with it.
Yeah. If you play Kai against King Vegeta, don't swing. Play it on your turn.
And immediately pop it.
Pop it immediately. Yeah. Yep. All of those things.
And then hope that you don't die on the crackback.
Yep.
That's the only way. Nothing else will do it.
I have never seen a deck be less afraid of that card in the entire game.
Yeah.
It's good. It's great if you time it right, but the window is so small against King Vegeta that you literally have to be the exact action.
It's like
on point. Otherwise, it's just dead and you lose the game.
It's like this is how the window starts. And then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and then it's gone.
It's big.
And that whole thing happens in about 2 turns. From, hey, I have a window starting on turn 1 to I don't have a window anymore on like turn 3, maybe 4, depending on how hard you've hit them.
The other important thing too is if you play it too early and you kill like a Jiren unison, I can either just slap another Jiren or slap a Gohanks down.
Just kill the Jiren normally, or if they're at 1, just try to kill them. Not with battle cards.
Yeah, battle cards are just not the way anymore. Yeah, so moving on to King Piccolo. After that long rant about King Vegeta, we all know what King Piccolo does. It has the most free interactions.
Free barrier blockers.
Yes, that also minus 10 ignoring barrier stuff, which is Red's theme, as we said before. But
is it minus 10 or minus 5?
It's minus 10. Drum is
my
minus
god.
10. Yeah. Um. So
It's
yeah,
still
it just
good.
plays. It's good, but it has these really weird fringe counters like the Bardock Unison that says you can't combo cards because I kill them,
Yeah.
and it just because of those cards that existing that like if someone just drops that, you're like, what do I do? Nobody showed me how to the employee handbook didn't talk about this, so I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Also, I mean, if you're playing a deck that can shotgun, if
Yeah, they
you
need setup.
can shotgun King Piccolo from, in like a turn, which is definitely possible, or even 2 turns, because they don't normally awaken until turn 3, right? When they would like
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
So
3
with a
preferably.
deck like Vegex, in 2 turns you can easily put them down to 3 life, and then you Gogeta shotgun them from 3 to 1.
Yeah.
Even with their awaken, they'll go back to 2. I mean, the deck is still good, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely
Oh, yeah.
not as good as King Vegeta.
No, but it's also cheaper by like
A lot. Yes.
A lot.
A lot cheaper. Now.
Yeah. Okay, so the other deck that's going to be top, hanging with the big boys on the varsity team that I actually didn't write any notes for, but we should talk about is Mecha Frieza.
Yes, and there's technically 3 variants of mecha that are being played now.
What? You mean that a top tier deck can be built multiple ways?
Yeah, that's a crazy recurring theme, right? So obviously we have, mono yellow mecha, which is what it started as. It's still good, but it's easier to answer, I feel like.
And it's more linear.
It is more linear. And then we have the 2 other variants that are pretty similar to each other, but have some pretty big differences. I don't know if people really notice them as much as I have, but the difference between Aegis Mecha and Blue Yellow Mecha is pretty significant, even if like on paper it doesn't look that different in the list itself. It's pretty different.
Yeah.
So Aegis, it's playing Zamasu super combos, Bojax, and then I think like 1 or 2 of the Sorel and Hop from Battle Evo.
Usually 1, and it just plans to Aegis maybe 2 or 3
and that's
max times a game.
And that's it. And like if they don't draw into their Bojax, the deck is not working. Blue Yellow Mecha, on the other hand, is like a hybrid of the Aegis list and the Mono Yellow list, because it goes back to playing more apes, because I know Aegis only played a couple, right? Or is it the other way around?
It's the other way around. So
okay, Aegis does play more apes.
It's like 3, 2,
versus
3.
Okay.
Or whatever. It's like 1 different.
Yeah. The big difference is that it's playing beans, and you might be thinking, well, what is it going to do with its Krillin super combos with blue energy? Once you have a U9 on board, you can just charge your Sorel and Hop in active mode.
Yep. And
and then your Krillin works.
All we do is Avengers Assemble into our U9.
Yep. It is also kind of weird that a lot of the blue yellow lists are cutting Chapil.
Yeah, that card.
I think it should stay in the deck. Maybe not a full 4, maybe 2 or 3.
3.
Because the tax that it puts on the opponent is very valuable.
And also, U9's not always good enough as just a draw 3 card type of thing, you know, where you take a life and such.
Mhm.
And sometimes you really need that 15k swing.
Yeah. Or the protection. Because against like Vegex, I'm probably going to tap out, the first 3 turns of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So you want to get the most out of your U9s then. And if you ship hill on the first one, that sets me back a turn each one of those turns.
Yeah.
But now I really can't do what I want to until turn 4. And the blue-yellow lists are also playing Celzino.
Right. Yeah.
So all you have to do is wait one more turn and then Celzino me at 5 energy and I'm probably dead.
Yeah, so excuse me. Like Tim said, we have the 3 different versions of the deck. We have the Aegis, which is a little bit kind of mid-rangey, the blue-yellow, which is leaning more into the control side of things, and they're not like turboing out dudes turns 1 and 2 and 3. And then the mono-yellow, which is still the same game plan. It's like turbo out U9s, build this gigantic hand, counter everything you do, and then turn sideways.
Yeah. Another thing is blue-yellow is playing fighting against fates. And I know Crossworlds did a deck profile on Danny's list that he topped with. But if you beat on that, that's kind of nuts. That's a dual 30k off of a single bean. It's kind of gross.
Probably was the only deck with 30ks.
It's kind of gross. And then like you can also Warcry onto it if you want to. And you probably have a Bojack on field, so you can Aegis on defense to just untap the 2 energy.
Yeah,
it operates again on like a totally different level than a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it just has a tough time if you're playing the blue-yellow versions when your opponent can interact with barrier.
Yes.
Then it becomes rough.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I do think that both Aegis and blue-yellow have a leg up, is that the important cards in those decks, like the Bojack, there's a couple others. I know Poutine is played in both of them still. They have barrier, which is really hard to get rid of in most decks.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So Mecha's good. It's definitely, I think, a little more difficult to play just because it relies on battle cards so much more than unisons. But it does run a very, very good unison, the Vegeta, most of the time. But it does rely on like the Bojack staying in play or battle cards turning sideways, which innately is not the safest idea. And that's kind of why it doesn't sit right with me. But I think it is a very good deck.
Oh, definitely. I don't think anyone would disagree with that either.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely in the top, 3-4 decks.
Absolutely.
Now we move on to the color that seems to be hiding.
Yeah. I don't even know if we should talk about this color.
It's the only one left. So
right, I guess we'll do it.
Yeah. Blue is like nowhere to be found outside of Baby.
And my room.
Yeah. Yeah, like coming out of the gates early, there's a lot of hype on new Gohan and Bojack. But there's been like no representation. And both decks are really easy to interact with.
Yep.
Soul Striker, I think, still has a place.
It's like the premier blue leader, I'd say, for generic good blue deck.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the most generic. Like you can put kind of whatever you want into it. What are the probably only like a couple other playable blue leaders, right? like on a fringe level.
Yeah, so you got Vegito, Zamasu, Soul
Yeah.
Striker as the generic ones, and then Baby as like the best one, and then Gohan and Bojack as the archetype
Yeah.
centric ones.
Um,
The
I
problem
really
with
only
Blue,
think Baby is good there, and it's like not even as control heavy as it originally was.
no, it's super relying on overdrive. Like if
Hmm.
I sit across from a Baby deck and they're not playing overdrive, I am 100% confident that they are losing that match.
Yep.
It just all right, cool. What are you gonna do? Turn
Yeah,
sideways with your board, and
against
then it's gonna
red,
die?
you have to have overdrive. I think against a lot of the other colors though, traditional Baby I think is maybe better.
Yeah, it's just the issue with a lot of those, not top tier decks that we were talking about. Maybe fringe,
Yeah.
tier 0 or whatever, where they have an issue with something. There's something in the meta that they have an issue with, and that's what kind of holds them back.
Hmm.
So,
yeah. There's honestly not really much to talk about regarding Blue.
I do want to mention a couple things, and I don't think it's really an issue with the color itself. I think Blue has some of the best, battle cards, negates, energy manipulation, all of that. They do extremely well, and they're usually always on the side of not being played at all or being very broken. And I think the middle ground there is just due to representation. I think there's a lot of good Blue decks out there. Are they the top tier? No. Are they good enough to beat decks if a certain one of those top tier decks kind of falls in representation? Yes. But, like we said with Mechikabur and King Cold, I feel like it just doesn't tick people quite right. And there's a lot of players that just don't think Blue is good. But it is.
Yeah, I mean it's not bad. I just don't think it's better than the other options.
Yeah. And they don't really have an aggro deck.
It's Zamasu, which is not that great.
Turn 4 aggro, cool.
Zamasu can go earlier.
I
Can't
don't
it?
think they could 8-0 on like.
Well,
turn
because
2
they
or
can
3.
get to 4 energy on turn 2.
Yeah, but they're not killing you on your second turn.
Maybe.
It's kind of once in a while. I'm talking like, killing you through
Yeah.
a dormant or something.
No, it's definitely not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that kind of wraps up our state of the meta address. I do want to mention a couple more decks that I had on my mind that I think are totally viable and meta. It just requires a lot more playtesting, because that's the thing with meta, right? Is that everyone wants to play the deck that they're going to have the easiest time doing the best with. And there's that sort of graph, right? And these decks that I'm about to mention, while we're not going to go too in depth with them, are very, very good potentially, but are difficult to play. And so like some of them are like Invoker, Launch, Sen Shenron. That's the 3 that come to my mind. And then you also have Cell Surge. Those are the 4 that I had in mind of
The
decks that can do
multicolored
really
decks.
well. Yeah, actually, they're all basically all multicolor, except Sin is kind of a jumble of weird things right
Sin
now.
aggro.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's just hard to play, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think if you show up to an event with it, you're going to do well. More than likely.
Or you're going to end all your matches early and go get food.
Yeah.
Which is good. That's called winning.
What's kind of funny, I don't know if I said this at your house or not. That Cell Surge list that won in the last couple weeks, won the online event.
Yeah.
It was almost card for card that random Cell Surge list I took to your house like a couple months ago.
I know. I
Like
Was hoping
almost
that
the
you,
exact list.
I was hoping you would have kept playing that Cell deck because I don't think it needed Roshi, and I don't think green as a color needs Roshi at
It
all.
didn't. I only had Roshi in it because I figured
So
why
it was
not play
good.
Maiden Transformation? But
Yeah,
the deck doesn't need it. It can do other things.
yeah, no, but
Um,
yeah, it's
I
definitely
mean, I
good.
still have it sleeved. I just need
Yeah,
to slightly adjust it like 10 cards now.
yeah, but yeah. So all of those, pique a little bit of interest. They just don't seem like they're one of the top like 5 decks to play. But if you play them enough and get good with them, I think they could totally like steal a whole event if you get really good with it and slightly lucky in your matchups. Um, Tim, did you have anything you wanted to add to any of that state of the meta address before we close out?
If anyone from Bandai is watching or listening, you should give black a free counterplay like the other colors have.
No, I thought you
Please.
were asking for like a shout out or something.
Like like
Or
like Deborah, exactly.
no,
Maybe a little bit different. Like either or. Either can't attack or it can't activate abilities.
no, they'll just give it
Or do
counterplay.
something. Just
If
give
it's
us a good free one, please. Please.
leader lock it to Demon Realm Race though,
That's fine.
I'll be okay with that.
And then we'll just reboot Demigro, which we also talked about yesterday, which is really interesting. Maybe we'll do like a mini episode on that conversation because that was a fun conversation.
Yes, we'll put that out next time, but I think we've gone long enough.
Yes.
So just a few bookkeeping things. Like we said before, check out Ender's Games down in the description. They sponsor us and we appreciate them greatly. If you haven't checked out our other links down there, we have merchandise, which we are working on some new stuff that we're going to be representing at Vegas that might lead to some products you guys can purchase to help us out.
That is
which
true.
is really cool. And we have our Patreon link and Tim's stream, which he probably going to pick up a little more now that he has more free time after Vegas and such. So keep an eye out for all that stuff. And if you want to, like I said, the Patreon, support us monetarily, we can take that there and you guys get some stuff in return. So
small side note on the Patreon before we close it out. We're going to have some stuff going up. I think we're going to schedule it for Friday upload, right?
Yeah, we'll have our
do we want to have
65?
Yeah, we're not going to include sideboards. But I think we're going to put our lists for the regional on Patreon with a small write up. And that'll be for everyone on the team that's going. So we'll have 4 of us. Maybe we'll include Marcus. We'll see.
Yikes.
As a guest. Maybe. Depends on if the car is big enough.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, make sure you guys keep an eye out for that. If you want to get a little insight, maybe tech against us or whatever, or just see what we're playing. Honestly, I like seeing what people are playing and why they're playing it. It gives me a lot of insight into how people think, which is a good thing. But without further ado, did you have anything to say before we close out, Tim?
I just want to say thanks for continuing to support us, especially while we've been kind of inactive for a bit, with life going on. Thank you guys for continuing to support us, and it's good to be back.
Absolutely. And without further ado, we are Sideboard Gaming, and we're checking out.
See ya.